Every single morning he woke before dawn. No alarm, no one forcing him. He was the most powerful man on earth, Emperor of Rome, and he could have slept in. Eaten lavishly, done absolutely nothing. Nobody would have stopped him. Instead, Marcus Aurelius rose in the cold dark, sat alone, and wrote. Not orders, not laws, reminders to himself about discipline, about duty, about not wasting a single moment of the life he'd been given. Almost 2,000 years later, those private notes became one of the most read books in human history. Meditations. And here's the question I want you to sit with today. If the most powerful man in the ancient world had to fight for his self-discipline every single day, what does that tell us about the battle you are fighting right now? Stay with me, because what Marcus Aurelius discovered and what Stoic philosophy teaches is not just ancient wisdom. It is a blueprint, a practical, real, deeply human system for building the kind of self-discipline that actually lasts. And by the end of this video, you will understand it completely. Before we get into the philosophy, let's understand the man. Marcus Aurelius was born in 121 AD, in Rome. He didn't choose to be emperor. It was chosen for him. Adopted by Emperor Antoninus Pius, Marcus spent decades preparing for a role he never truly sought, studying Stoic philosophy under some of the greatest minds of his age. When he finally became emperor in 161 AD, he inherited a mess. Plagues swept across the empire. Wars raged on the borders. Political corruption festered from within. His own son, Commodus, would grow up to be one of Rome's most erratic and cruel rulers. And through all of it, Marcus Aurelius led, not perfectly, but with extraordinary discipline, self-awareness, and a commitment to something bigger than himself. Here's what makes him remarkable for our conversation today. He never saw himself as naturally virtuous. He never thought discipline came easily to him. In Meditations, he writes to himself, almost desperately at times, urging himself to stop wasting time, to get out of bed, to be better, to do the work. He says, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." But he also wrote things like, "I have to go to work. What do I have to complain about if I'm going to do what I was born for?" This wasn't a man who had it all figured out. This was a man who was fighting every single day the same war you and I fight. The war against comfort, against distraction, against the version of ourselves that just wants to take the easy road. And he developed a system rooted in Stoic philosophy to win that war. Let's break it down. Principle number 1, the discipline of perception. The first, and arguably most important, principle Marcus Aurelius taught about self-discipline has nothing to do with habits or routines. It has everything to do with how you see the world. The Stoics called it the discipline of perception, and it begins with a single, radical idea. You don't react to events. You react to your interpretation of events. Read that again. You don't react to what happens. You react to what you tell yourself about what happens. Let me give you a modern example. Imagine two people, same situation. They both get passed over for a promotion at work. Person A tells themselves, "This is unfair. I'm not good enough. What's the point of trying?" Person B tells themselves, "Okay, what can I learn from this? What do I need to do differently?" Same event. Completely different internal experience. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "If you are distressed by anything external, the pain is not due to the thing itself, but to your estimate of it. And this you have the power to revoke at any moment." This is the foundation of Stoic. Self-discipline, not controlling. What happens to you? But ruthlessly mastering the story you tell yourself about it. Now here's where this gets really practical. Lack of self-discipline almost always begins in the mind before it shows up in behavior. Think about it. When you can't get yourself to do something, work out, study, start a difficult project, what's really happening? You're telling yourself a story. "I'm too tired. I'll do it tomorrow. I'm just not that kind of person." Or what if I fail anyway? These aren't facts. They're interpretations. And Marcus would tell you, you have the power to challenge every single one of them. The Stoics had a practice for this called cognitive reframing, though they didn't call it that. The modern term comes from psychology. But the technique is 2,000 years old. It works like this. When you feel resistance to doing something you know you should do, pause. Don't act on the feeling. Instead ask, what story am I telling myself right now? Then ask, is that story actually true, or is it just comfortable? Marcus Aurelius did this constantly. He would catch himself wanting to stay in bed and write, what is it about staying in bed that serves me? I was made for work. Getting up is the thing. He challenged his own narrative every single day. And here's the powerful truth. When you change the story, the behavior changes too. You don't need more willpower. You need a more accurate story. So here's a challenge for you, just this week. Every time you feel resistance to something you know you should do, write down the story you're telling yourself. Then ask, is it true? Drop in the comments below. What's one story you've been telling yourself that's been holding you back? I read every single one. Principle number 2, the discipline of action. Now we move from the mind to the body, from perception to action. Because Marcus Aurelius was not a passive philosopher. He was a man of relentless, deliberate action. And Stoic philosophy, despite what many people think, is not about accepting everything passively. It's about knowing what you can and cannot control, and then throwing everything you have at what you can. The Stoics called this the discipline of action, and it is built on 3 cornerstones. Cornerstone 1, act in accordance with your nature and purpose. Marcus believed every human being has a function, a telos, a purpose, and that self-discipline is simply the daily commitment to fulfilling that function. He wrote, confine yourself to the present, not the guilt of yesterday, not the anxiety of tomorrow. Right now, what needs to be done right now? This is the antidote to the modern epidemic of procrastination. We procrastinate not because we're lazy. Research consistently shows that procrastination is actually an emotion regulation problem. We avoid tasks because they trigger feelings of anxiety, boredom, or self-doubt. Marcus Aurelius would say, feel the resistance, name it, and do the thing anyway. Not because it feels good, but because it is what you were made for. Cornerstone 2, amor fati, love of fate. This is one of the most misunderstood Stoic concepts. Amor fati means not just accepting what happens to you, but actively loving it, including the hard parts, the painful parts, the boring, grinding parts, because those are the parts that build you. Marcus Aurelius fought campaigns in freezing Germanic forests when he would have much rather been in Rome, studying philosophy. He didn't just endure it, he chose to see it as exactly where he was supposed to be. Think about what this means for self-discipline. The run you don't want to go on, that's exactly where your discipline is forged. The project you're dreading, that's exactly the work that will define you. The difficult conversation you've been avoiding, that's precisely the moment your character is revealed. Amor fati. Don't just tolerate the hard thing. Find a way to love it, because it is making you who you need to become. Cornerstone 3. Small actions done consistently are everything. Here's where Marcus gets almost counterintuitive. We think of self-discipline as these massive acts of willpower. The cold shower, the 5 a.m. wake-up, the brutal workout. But Marcus Aurelius writes again and again about the small things. Getting up when you said you would. Eating with moderation. Speaking with care. Doing your duty even when no one is watching. He writes, never esteem anything as of advantage to you that will make you break your word or lose your self-respect. Self-discipline in the Stoic framework is not a performance. It's not for anyone else to see. It is the private commitment you make and keep with yourself. Every small kept promise to yourself builds the muscle. Every broken one erodes it. This is why Marcus Aurelius kept writing meditations, not to publish, not for fame, just to hold himself accountable to his own standards. Can I ask you something? What is the one small action, just one, that you've been promising yourself you'll do and haven't done yet? Write it in the comments. Make it real. Make it public. That accountability, that is Stoicism in action. Principle number 3, the discipline of will. We've talked about how to see clearly and how to act with purpose. But there is a third discipline, the deepest one, that separates those who merely start from those who actually last. The Stoics called it the discipline of will, and Marcus Aurelius spent more ink on this than almost anything else. Because here's the brutal truth about self-discipline. You will fail regularly. You will have days where you don't get out of bed, where you eat the thing you said you wouldn't, where you skip the work, avoid the call, choose comfort over growth. It will happen. The question is not whether you will fall. The question is whether you have the will to rise. This is what the Stoics called reserve clause thinking, going into every effort with the internal acknowledgement, I will do this, unless something beyond my control prevents it. It sounds like a cop-out. It's actually the opposite. Because when failure happens, and it will, you don't spiral into shame or self-destruction. You simply say, okay, this happened. That was outside my control. What is in my control right now? And then you begin again. Marcus Aurelius describes his own failures with breathtaking honesty in Meditations. He writes about irritability, about vanity, about days where he felt he had wasted time. He does not excuse himself. He does not punish himself into paralysis. He simply notes it, learns from it, and commits again. This is what psychological researchers now call self-compassion, and the science is extraordinary. Studies from Dr. Kristin Neff at the University of Texas found that people who practice self-compassion after failure are more motivated, not less. They bounce back faster. They try harder. They are more resilient. Compare that to self-criticism, which the research shows actually undermines motivation and increases anxiety. Marcus Aurelius was practicing self-compassion before modern psychology had a word for it. He didn't beat himself up when he fell short. He treated himself the way a good teacher treats a student who makes a mistake, with honesty, with standards, but also with patience and the expectation that growth is possible. Now let's talk about something Marcus calls the obstacle is the way, a concept so powerful that Ryan Holiday wrote an entire book about it. In Meditations, Marcus writes, the impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way. Read that slowly. What stands in the way becomes the way. Every obstacle to your discipline, every temptation, every setback, every failure is not evidence that you can't do it. It is the actual raw material from which your discipline is built. The days you don't feel like doing the work and do it anyway, those are the days that matter most. The discipline of will is this. When everything in you wants to quit, you remember why you started. You remember who you want to become. And you take one more step. Not because it's easy, because you are not the person who quits. And every time you make that choice, you become more fully that person. If this is resonating with you, this is the moment to hit that like button. It genuinely helps this channel reach people who need to hear this message. And if you're new here, welcome to Wisdom of the Stoics. Subscribe and we do this together every week. Let's get very practical for a moment. Because one of the most beautiful things about Marcus Aurelius is that he didn't just philosophize. He built systems based on what we know from Meditations and historical accounts. Here is the framework of how Marcus Aurelius began his day and how you can adapt it for your life today. Step 1. The pre-morning check-in. Before Marcus got out of bed, he would mentally prepare himself for the day, acknowledging that it would likely be hard, that he would encounter difficult people and frustrating circumstances, and that his task was not to be untouched by these things, but to respond to them with virtue. He actually wrote a specific morning reflection found in Meditations. When you wake up in the morning, tell yourself, the people I deal with today will be meddling, ungrateful, arrogant, dishonest, jealous, and surly. But I have seen the beauty of good and the ugliness of evil, and have recognized that the wrongdoer has a nature related to my own. This is not pessimism. This is preparation. He's inoculating himself against frustration before it arrives. Your version of this might look like this. Before you pick up your phone in the morning, before you look at emails, before you scroll anything, take 60 seconds and ask, what is one challenge I'm likely to face today? How do I want to respond to it if it comes? That single habit can change the entire trajectory of your day. Step 2. Journaling. Meditations itself is the product of Marcus's journaling practice. He wrote to himself, every day, not to record events, but to think through his philosophy, challenge his own thinking, and remind himself of what mattered. Modern research on journaling is remarkably aligned with Stoic practice. Studies consistently show that expressive writing reduces anxiety, improves emotional regulation, and increases self-awareness. You don't need to write a masterpiece. Marcus didn't either. You need to write honestly. 3 prompts to start with, taken directly from the Stoic tradition. What am I grateful for today? Where did I fall short yesterday, and what will I do differently? What is one thing within my control that I will commit to doing today? Step 3. Physical training. Marcus was a Roman emperor and military commander. Physical rigor was non-negotiable. But more than practicality, the Stoics believed deeply in the mind-body connection. Discipline in the body trains discipline in the mind. This doesn't mean you need 2 hours at the gym. Research shows that even 20-30 minutes of moderate exercise has profound effects on cognitive function, emotional regulation, and willpower. Your body is the vessel of your discipline. Treat it accordingly. The Stoics didn't just have a morning practice. They had an evening one too. The philosopher Seneca, a contemporary of Marcus's tradition, described a nightly ritual of self-examination. He wrote about questioning himself at the end of each day. What bad habit have I cured today? What fault have I resisted? In what respect am I better? Marcus Aurelius practiced a version of this throughout meditations. The Stoic evening audit is simple. 3 questions before you sleep. 1. Where did I practice self-discipline today? Don't skip this one. Acknowledge the wins. Build identity evidence that you are, in fact, someone who shows up for themselves. 2. Where did I fall short, and why? Not to shame yourself, to learn. Be honest, be specific, and be brief. Then let it go. 3. Who did I serve today beyond myself? This is the one people miss. Marcus Aurelius was obsessed with his duty to others, to the empire, to his people, to the common good. He knew that self-discipline divorced from purpose becomes empty. Your discipline should be for something. A family you're building, a body you want to maintain for a long life, a craft you're developing, a community you're serving. When your discipline is connected to something beyond yourself, it becomes almost inexhaustible. Write down who or what your discipline is ultimately for. Put it somewhere you'll see it every morning. That single clarity may be the most powerful thing you do this week. I want to close with something that surprised me when I first understood it. We talk about self-discipline as if it's a kind of punishment, a cage, something you impose on yourself to suffer through so you can get results. Marcus Aurelius saw it completely differently. For him, self-discipline was not about restriction. It was the highest form of respect for yourself, for your potential, and for the people who depend on you. He wrote, "Never let the future disturb you. You will meet it if you have to, with the same weapons of reason which today arm you against the present." Self-discipline in the Stoic vision is an act of faith in your own future self. Every time you do the hard thing today, you are giving a gift to the person you will be tomorrow. Every workout you didn't skip, every morning you showed up, every time you told yourself a better story and acted from your values. Instead of your feelings, you were loving your future self. And more than that, Marcus Aurelius understood something profound. The people around you are shaped by who you are. Your children are watching. Your friends are watching. Your community is watching, not to judge you, but to be influenced by you. The discipline you build in private creates a version of you that shows up differently in public, more patient, more grounded, more capable, more present. That is not a small thing. That is everything. Marcus Aurelius ruled an empire of millions, but the kingdom he worked hardest to govern, the one he wrote about every single day, was the empire of his own mind, and he never stopped working on it. Neither should we. So let's bring it all together. Marcus Aurelius, the most powerful man in the ancient world, chose to fight for his self-discipline every single day, not because it came naturally, but because he understood something we are still learning. The quality of your life is the sum of the choices you make when no one is watching. And the Stoic system he left us, the discipline of perception, The discipline of action, the discipline of will, is not just philosophy. It is a practice. It works not because it's ancient, but because it is profoundly human. Because we have always been this same creature, capable of greatness and prone to comfort. And we have always needed a framework for choosing the former over the latter. Start tonight. The evening audit, 3 questions. Start tomorrow morning. 60 seconds of preparation before you touch your phone. Start this week. 1 honest entry in a journal. And start right now. Tell me in the comments, which of these 3 disciplines do you need the most right now? Perception, action, or will? Because I'm building the next video in this series, and your answer will shape it directly. This channel is a conversation, not a lecture, and I need to know where you are. If this video gave you something, a new idea, a new perspective, even just a moment of quiet clarity, share it with someone who needs it. That one share could change someone's week, maybe their year. Subscribe to Wisdom of the Stoics if you haven't yet. We go deep on these ideas every week. Because the ancient wisdom is inexhaustible, and so is the need for it. Marcus Aurelius wrote his final words in Meditations, not as conclusions, but as another beginning, because for him the work was never done. That is perhaps the most Stoic truth of all. The work is never done, and that is not a burden. That is the privilege of being alive. Until next time, choose discipline, choose growth, choose the harder, better path. I'll see you there. While you're here, I've got 2 videos I think you'll love next. One on Stoic morning routines and one on how Marcus Aurelius dealt with failure. Links are right on your screen. Pick one. I'll see you in the next one.